NOAA puts the odds of a very strong El Nino this fall at 81%. The Farmer's Almanac puts the odds of its own forecast being right at 80 to 85%. Only one of those numbers comes with a method anyone outside the building can check. The Farmer's Almanac winter forecast for 2026 to 2027 dropped on August 6th, and it has been everywhere since. Snow squalls, bitter cold, a messy northeast. The prediction itself is unremarkable. What's underneath it is where this gets interesting for anyone who likes space science, because the Almanac's formula is an astronomy claim. Snow spots, the moon, tidal pull. So let's take it apart. What the Farmer's Almanac actually predicted. The short version, a wet, stormy south and a jumpy north. The Almanac calls for an active storm track running from Southern California and the desert Southwest through Texas, the Gulf Coast, and the Southeast. Frequent systems, muddy fields, occasional cold surges that turn rain into sleet or heavy wet snow. Up north, temperatures average near normal across the West, Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes. But the Almanac warns that near normal doesn't mean mild. Fast-moving clippers, sudden cold snaps, snow squalls, and blustery winds, broken up by milder stretches. The Northeast gets the messiest call. Rain and mixed precipitation on the coast, several rounds of heavy wet snow inland, mostly in January and February. Hold on to that northern tier prediction, we'll come back to it. Can sunspots and the moon really predict snow? The Almanac says its formula weighs sunspot cycles, lunar position, tidal pull, and historical patterns, and says the exact details aren't published. That last part matters, and we'll get to it. First, the sun. Averaged over a year, the sun delivers about 1,361 watts per square meter to the top of Earth's atmosphere. Across an 11-year solar cycle, that number swings by roughly 1 watt. 1. That's the 0.1% you sometimes hear quoted. What does 1 watt buy you? NOAA's estimate, a global surface temperature effect of about 0.1 degrees Celsius or less. Now sit with that. A tenth of a degree, spread across the entire planet, averaged over 11 years. The Almanac is using that signal to tell you whether Buffalo gets a heavy February. Now, baseline solar output against the approximately 1 watt per square meter solar cycle swing. The moon fares no better. Adam Scaife runs long-range forecasting at the UK Met Office, and he told Scientific American that solar activity and lunar motion have tiny, very small effects on ordinary weather variation. Lunar atmospheric tides are real and measurable. They're also nowhere near strong enough to steer a jet stream. Here's the detail that should have led every article about this forecast. In that same piece, a Farmer's Almanac editor said their forecaster consults NOAA and Climate Prediction Center outlooks to make tweaks. Read it again. The 208-year-old secret formula gets adjusted using the free government forecast. The one real signal is El Nino, and we watch it from orbit. Strip out the sunspots and the lunar cycles, and one genuine ingredient remains. Every regional call in this forecast traces back to El Nino. That part is solid. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center has been running an El Nino advisory since June, with the key Pacific temperature index at plus 1.2 degrees Celsius, an 81% chance of a very strong event during October through December, and a 97% chance it lasts into early spring 2027. So how do we know? This is the space story hiding inside a weather story. Warm water expands. When the Pacific heats up, it physically swells, and the ocean surface rises. Sea level near Indonesia normally sits 40 to 50 centimeters higher than off the coast of Ecuador. During an El Nino, that pile of warm water sloshes east and flattens the difference. Satellites measure that bulge. Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich reads sea surface height from orbit, precisely enough to see the Pacific rearranging itself in near real time. Is one of the quieter miracles of Earth observation. Beneath it, roughly 4,000 Argo floats drift, dive to depth, and surface to beam back temperature profiles of the upper ocean. None of this existed when it mattered most. The 1982-83 El Nino, the strongest on record at the time, blindsided the world because nobody was watching the equatorial Pacific closely enough. NOAA responded by building the Tau Array, 70 moored buoys strung across the Pacific over the following decade. That's the honest version of this forecast. The useful part didn't come from the moon. It came from hardware bolted to the seafloor and flying at orbital velocity. Now, the part almost every write-up skipped. NOAA's composite of past El Niño winters is specific. Wetter and cooler across the southern United States, from California to Florida and up the East Coast, and warmer and drier than average across the northern tier and the Great Lakes. Compare that to the Almanac. The southern half of its forecast matches the textbook El Niño pattern almost line for line. The northern half leans the other way, toward cold snaps and bitter outbreaks in the exact region where El Niño composites tilt mild. Wisconsin makes a good test case. The last El Niño winter there, 2023 to 24, ended up as Milwaukee's warmest on record. There's a second problem with the northern call, and it's structural. Near normal temperatures, plus sudden cold snaps, plus milder breaks that interrupt them. Cold weather confirms it. Mild weather confirms it. Average weather confirms it. A forecast that can't come out wrong isn't telling you anything. Cold outbreaks up there do have a real mechanism, by the way. It runs through the polar vortex and sudden stratospheric warming. What it is, not through lunar position. To NOAA's credit, its own discussion carries the opposite kind of caveat, warning that even the strongest events don't deliver the expected impacts everywhere, and that stronger events tilt the odds rather than guarantee outcomes. That sentence is doing real scientific work. It's also the sentence that never survives the trip into a headline. How accurate is the Farmer's Almanac winter forecast? About as accurate as a coin. The most cited independent test came from John Walsh and David Allen at the University of Illinois, who checked 60 monthly temperature and precipitation forecasts across 32 U.S. stations. Temperature forecasts landed on the right side of normal 50.7% of the time. Precipitation, 51.9%. Chance gives you 50%. Nick Bond, the Washington State climatologist, ran his own check on Pacific Northwest winter forecasts from 1990 to 2002. Temperature correlation with what actually happened, essentially zero. Precipitation, about minus 0.2. Negative. The precipitation forecasts were slightly worse than guessing. And the 80% claim? The Old Farmer's Almanac calculates that figure itself, scoring whether it got the direction of departure from normal right in one city per region. Its rival doesn't publish a comparable number at all. One more thing from that reporting, which is almost too good. The Old Farmer's Almanac contracts its long-range predictions out to AccuWeather. The secret formula in the black box in Dublin, New Hampshire has a vendor. None of this makes the almanacs frauds. They're doing something genuinely hard. Atmospheric chaos makes it impossible to predict specific events like a cold snap or a snowy stretch more than a couple of weeks out, no matter whose supercomputer you use. Nobody can do what the almanac claims to do. The difference is that NOAA doesn't claim to. 2 almanacs, 1 game of telephone. Worth knowing before you argue about this online. There are 2 of them. The Farmer's Almanac started in 1818. The Old Farmer's Almanac started in 1792. Separate companies, separate forecasts, similar names, and they issue competing predictions every single year. Watch what happened to this one story in 48 hours. The Almanac published a regional outlook grounded in El Niño. Fox Weather covered it accurately and added the phrase Super El Niño, which appears nowhere in the Almanac's forecast. NOAA's actual term is very strong, a defined category with a temperature threshold behind it. A Wisconsin outlet then quoted the Old Farmer's Almanac on El Niño and the Farmer's Almanac on snow squalls in the same article, noting partway down that they're different publications. Nothing dishonest happened at any step. The forecast just got louder with each hop, while the uncertainty attached to it got quieter.
What to do with all this in October? Skip the map with the cartoon snowflakes. Go to the Climate Prediction Center, which updates its ENSO discussion monthly and publishes seasonal outlooks as probabilities rather than verdicts. Those outlooks will look less satisfying. A 40% chance of above normal temperatures is a worse story than bitter cold is coming. It's also the shape an honest 6-month forecast has to take. And once you can read one, the Almanac's confidence starts to look like the least trustworthy thing about it.